So, Amy's in the hospital, right? She's been waiting for this day forever. It's supposed to be one of the happiest days of her life. But you know what? She can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. Like, really wrong. She's sitting there, breathing through these contractions that are getting worse by the minute. She's gripping the armrests so tight her knuckles are white, and she keeps looking at the monitor. But everything's normal, or at least that's what the nurse keeps saying. "I'm fine," Amy says, even though she's definitely not fine. Liam, her husband, is pacing the room like he's trying to wear a hole in the floor. He's calm on the outside, but Amy knows him too well. He's panicking just as much as she is. And then it hits. Another contraction, this one way sharper than before. She gasps, but the nurse, Sarah, just shrugs it off. "You're only at 3 centimeters, she says. "It could be hours." Hours? No way. Amy's gut is screaming at her. Something's wrong. She tries to breathe through it, like they taught her in all those prenatal classes, but this isn't just labor pain. It's different. Way different. I know what you're thinking. If she knows something's wrong, why isn't anyone doing anything? That's what Amy's thinking too, but every time she says something, Sarah just brushes it off. "First-time moms always think it's worse than it is," the nurse says, barely looking at her. Liam, though, he's not having it. He can see the look in Amy's eyes, and he knows this isn't normal. So, without a second thought, he storms out of the room and finds a doctor. He's done waiting. The doctor comes in, checks her over, and suddenly, everything changes. "We need to prep for an emergency C-section," he says. "The baby's in distress." And just like that, the whole room explodes into action. Nurses rush in, machines start beeping louder. They wheel Amy down the hall, lights flashing overhead like some bad dream. And Liam? He's right there, holding her hand until they push him back from the OR doors. I know what you're thinking. What happens next? Is Amy okay? Is the baby okay? Well, it's not that simple. Inside the OR, Amy feels like the world is slipping away. The pain vanishes, replaced by this heavy out-of-body sensation. She knows they're working on her, but it's like she's floating, disconnected from everything. Just when she thinks she might lose herself completely, she hears it. A tiny cry. Fragile, but real. Her heart leaps. The baby. She did it. Somehow, through all the fear and chaos, her baby made it. When Amy comes to, the first thing she sees is Liam standing over her. He's holding their baby girl, and he's crying. Tears of joy, relief, maybe even exhaustion. "She's here," he whispers, his voice shaking. "She's perfect." Amy reaches out, her fingers trembling to touch her daughter's soft cheek. She can hardly believe it. Relief washes over her in waves, and for a moment, everything else fades away. They made it. She made it. But that relief? It doesn't last long. As they wheel her out of the OR and into recovery, Amy can't shake the nagging thought that keeps creeping back. What if Liam hadn't pushed? What if she hadn't trusted her gut? The whole time, she knew something wasn't right. And yet, no one listened. Not until it was almost too late. Where was Nurse Sarah? Nowhere. Nowhere to be found when things went south. And now that it's over, Amy should feel grateful. But instead, she's angry. Really angry. Time passes, and their baby sleeps peacefully in Amy's arms. Liam is sitting beside her, his face a mixture of joy and something darker. "That nurse," he says, his voice tight with anger. "She didn't listen to you. You told her something was wrong, and she ignored you." Amy doesn't have the energy to argue. She's too tired, physically and emotionally drained. "I know," she whispers. But at that moment, she just wants to forget about it. All of it. She's holding her baby. She's safe. That should be enough, right? Liam shakes his head. "It's not right," he mutters, his voice getting harder. "It's not over. She can't just get away with that." Liam isn't one to let things slide, especially when it comes to Amy, so while she rests, he starts making noise. He talks to the head nurse, demands to see the doctor again, and doesn't stop until they agree to investigate what happened. A couple of days pass, and the hospital is buzzing. Word's gotten out that Liam, who's got connections in the hospital administration, isn't happy. And when Liam isn't happy, things move. Fast. They call Amy and Liam into a meeting. It's formal, stiff. The head doctor, the hospital's director, and a few other higher-ups are there. You can feel the tension in the room. This isn't just a meeting, it's damage control. "I want to start by apologizing for the care you received," the doctor begins. His tone is careful, almost rehearsed. We've launched an internal review of Nurse Sarah's conduct, and we take this matter very seriously. Liam is sitting next to Amy, his arms crossed, his jaw tight. He's not buying the apology. This isn't about an apology, he snaps. My wife almost died because no one listened to her. That nurse ignored her over and over. The room goes quiet. The hospital director clears his throat. We're addressing the situation. Nurse Sarah has been suspended while we investigate further. Amy watches the scene unfold in silence, her mind racing. She should feel satisfied, maybe even relieved that they're taking action. But instead, she just feels numb. It's like a fog is settling over her, dulling the edges of what should be a victory. As the meeting drags on, they promise to improve, better training for staff, new protocols for responding to patient concerns. They're saying all the right things. But Amy can't help but wonder, why did it have to come to this? Liam, though, he's not done. He presses them harder, demanding real change, not just promises on paper. He wants guarantees that no other woman will go through what Amy went through. The hospital officials nod along, but there's this feeling in the air, like they just want to make it all go away. Part 4. Days turn into weeks, and the hospital announces its new policies. They're holding workshops, making public statements, all the things they said they would. Nurse Sarah, she's officially been fired, and the hospital is pushing this narrative about how committed they are to listening to their patients. It's a small victory, but for Amy, it feels hollow. Every time she looks at her daughter, she's reminded of how close they came to losing everything. If Liam hadn't pushed, if she hadn't trusted herself, who knows how things might have ended. And that's the thing that sticks with her, the what if. Liam is still fired up about it. He's talking to lawyers, pushing for even more action. He doesn't want this to be just another case that gets swept under the rug. But Amy, she's exhausted. All she wants to do is focus on her baby, to move on. One night, she and Liam are sitting on the couch, the baby fast asleep in her crib. Liam turns to Amy, his face serious. "I'm not letting this go," he says, his voice low. "Not until I know this can't happen to anyone else." Amy looks at him, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "I know," she says softly, "but can we just breathe for a minute? I don't have it in me to keep fighting." Liam hesitates, then nods. "Okay," he whispers, wrapping his arm around her. But it's not over. Amy rests her head on his shoulder, her mind drifting. She knows he's right. It's not over. It might never be. But for now, she just wants to hold her baby and pretend, for a little while, that everything is okay. A few months later, Amy's life has fallen into a new rhythm. The sleepless nights, the endless diaper changes, the tiny moments of joy with her baby girl. It's what she imagined motherhood would be like. But the shadow of what happened in that hospital room still lingers. One afternoon, she's sitting with her daughter in her arms when the phone rings. It's Liam. He's at the hospital, meeting with the administrators again. Amy thought the fight was over, but not for him. He's been relentless, pushing for more changes, holding them accountable. They're making real progress, he tells her. New training programs, better oversight. They're actually doing it. Amy listens, her mind wandering back to that day in the hospital. The fear, the helplessness, it's all still there, buried beneath the surface. But now, with her daughter safe in her arms, the anger has faded. She's grateful that Liam is fighting for change, but part of her wishes she could leave it all behind. That evening, Liam comes home, looking more relaxed than he has in months. "It's done," he says, sitting beside her. They've agreed to everything. New protocols, more checks and balances. Sarah's never working as a nurse again. Amy nods, feeling a weight lift off her chest. It's a relief, knowing that something good has come from their nightmare. But at the same time, she can't shake the feeling that the hospital's changes, while important, don't erase what happened. They don't undo the fear she felt, or the fact that she had to fight just to be heard. As the weeks go by, life slowly returns to normal. Amy and Liam find their groove as new parents, learning how to navigate the ups and downs of parenthood. They're closer than ever, bonded by the shared trauma of what they went through. And yet, there are moments, quiet moments, where Amy catches herself thinking about that nurse, about how close they came to losing everything, and about all the women who might still face the same fight she did. One day, as they're packing up the baby for a walk, Liam turns to Amy. "You know," he says, "we really made a difference." Amy smiles softly, adjusting her daughter's hat. "Yeah," she says, "we did." They step outside, the fresh air hitting their faces as they push the stroller down the street. It feels like a new beginning, a fresh start. And for the first time in months, Amy feels like she can finally breathe. They fought the fight, and they won. But more than that, they've ensured that no one else will have to go through what they did. As they walk, Amy glances down at her daughter, who's staring up at the world with wide, curious eyes. She leans over, planting a soft kiss on her tiny forehead. "You're safe," she whispers. "We're all safe now." And with that, Amy feels something she hasn't felt in a long time: peace. The months roll on, and the hospital's new protocols begin to take effect. Amy hears from Liam that the staff have embraced the changes. There's better training, more accountability. Nurses are being taught to listen to patients more carefully, especially during labor and delivery. One day, Amy receives a letter from the hospital. It's addressed to her personally. Inside is a formal apology, one that goes beyond what was said in the meetings. The letter outlines all the changes they've made and thanks her for her patience and bravery during the ordeal. For a moment, Amy just stares at the letter, the words blurring together. It feels strange, holding this piece of paper in her hands, knowing that it represents so much more than just an apology. It represents change, real, tangible change. She folds the letter carefully and tucks it into a drawer. It's not something she'll forget, but it's not something she wants to carry with her forever, either. What matters now is her family. They survived. They're okay. And that's enough. That night, as she puts her daughter to bed, Amy reflects on how far they've come. From that terrifying day in the hospital to where they are now, stronger, more united. She brushes her fingers through her daughter's soft hair, whispering goodnight before quietly leaving the room. In the darkness of the living room, Liam sits with a cup of tea, his eyes tired but content. He looks up as Amy joins him on the couch. "Everything okay?" he asks. Amy nods, leaning into him. "Yeah," she whispers. "Everything's okay." They sit there in silence for a while, the only sound the gentle hum of the baby monitor in the background. The fight is over, the storm has passed, and now, finally, they can rest. For Amy, there will always be that memory of what happened, but it no longer defines her. It's a part of her story, yes, but it's not the whole story. She has so much more ahead of her, so much love, so much life. As she closes her eyes and rests her head on Liam's shoulder, she knows one thing for sure. They did what they had to do. They fought for what was right, and now they're stronger because of it.